When anyone becomes a Christian, they have lived a life they've lived according to how they wish to live. Nothing they have done or how they have lived makes them a Christian. Becoming a Christian is something that God does for them, and it is a true religious experience that can be described in words given in the Bible. So in order to encourage you to think and examine yourselves about your standing, either as a Christian or an unbeliever, I wish to relate to you my experience of becoming a Christian at the age of 20 years old. Before my conversion, I met with Christians who were of the opinion that my lifestyle was unacceptable to God and was immoral. I had no real knowledge of God or the moral principles of a Christian. It was my opinion that Christians were simple and that their view of life was dismal, and I could not understand how they could enjoy life without being able to do and get up to the things I got up to. My life was that of a young criminal. I enjoyed rock music, had been in a rock band, been in trouble with the police, was involved with promiscuous behaviour, and had no problem in stealing and involved in drugs and violence. I knew nothing about the gospel or what the message of the gospel was all about. I ridiculed those who believed the Bible was true and factual, and rejected what Christians said about the Bible and my lifestyle. I believed Jesus had died and had been put to death on the cross, but did not know why or why he died. I recall learning this as a child when I was about 10 years old. I was what the Bible described as an unregenerate man and a sinner. When I was 19 years old, I was introduced to a Christian in Brighton who spoke to me very seriously about the history of Israel, which made me think, as I knew nothing of the historic facts of the Jews. My life was full of living for the day, enjoying myself, getting up to mischief, drug-taking, theft and villainy, no fear of God, no religious beliefs, and did not care what others thought or believed. I enjoyed my sinful life. However, it was not until I was in serious trouble and in need of help that I cried out to God for help. I tell of my conversion in my book, Converted on LSD Trip, in which I tell how, after a bad experience on LSD, that I cried out to God for help, asking Jesus to please help me. This was on the 16th of January 1970. Jesus spoke to me, saying that my bad experience, which I describe as the horrors, was nothing compared to what hell was like. When I asked Jesus to never leave me, as I knew he was true and alive and had come to my aid, he said he'd never leave me. My life was changed that night. I wanted to live a life that was free from sin, violence and other sinful practices. I wanted to know who Jesus was and all about him. And my Christian friends gave me a Bible which I began to read. In fact, the Bible given me was a Good News for Modern Man, a version written in modern English, which was useful to me because I was virtually illiterate and had only read comic books such as the Beano and a Dandy. I soon learned about Jesus, his birth, his life and death, and I learned Jesus had died to save his people from their sins, that he died to pay the penalty for my sins, that me, being in him, was counted as a righteous person, free from the guilt of my sins. I learned these things by myself through reading the Bible itself. I was a new man. I had a new desire to follow Christ and give up my sinful life. I'd become what they call a Christian. This is the beginning of my first podcast. If you would like to hear more, give me a positive response.